The Department of Health went live with the digital vaccine certificate yesterday, but they say it was a mistake. The department says for now it is currently at the testing phase of the system to troubleshoot all the possible glitches ahead of the official launch later this week. For more on the digital vaccine certificate as well as its use, I'm joined now by Editor-in-Chief at Bhekisisa Centre for Health Journalism, Ms. Malan. Good to have you once again on the Daytime Update, Mia. Some rather excited South Africans yesterday who thought that they were finally going to have access to the very much spoken about and much anticipated vaccine certificates, but that was not to be. So when exactly can South Africans expect to have access to the real certificates online?
The Health Department says it will launch the site and it will be fully functional on Friday morning. They will launch it during the weekly media briefing that the Health Department has.
Now, there are some who did manage to download those certificates. What does it mean for them? Does it mean that those certificates are valid, or will they once again have to go through the process of downloading the certificate once they actually are available for the public?
The Health Department says those certificates will be valid. People who did manage to download the certificates shouldn't worry. They will still be able to use them. They will notice that there is an expiry of validity on it. It says it's only valid until January 2022. And the reason for that is everyone's certificates will say that is because there will be 2 more iterations of the certificates. Each time that you get a new version, there will be a bit more security on it. And they would like us to download a new version each time it becomes available. There's likely to be, right now we have a vaccine card. There's likely to be a certificate. That means a certificate means there's a bit more security. By the end of October and by the end of November, we likely, if all goes according to plan, to have a fully fledged vaccine passport. And they would like the previous versions, as the new versions become available, to be phased out. So that's why there's a validity expiry date, so that they encourage people to download the new versions and to stop using the old versions.
Take us through, Mia, how these vaccine certificates are actually going to work, as well as the systems that are in place to make sure that the authentication process is not compromised at all.
So a digital vaccine certificate is something that you can carry with you when you travel internationally, because many countries have rules that says you can only enter if you're fully vaccinated, or that there are different rules for you if you have not been fully vaccinated, such as quarantining and that sort of thing. So you can also use it locally to when restaurants or institutions make rules and say they want fully vaccinated people to enter, or perhaps if you're not vaccinated, then you need to present a negative test. Now, we don't have rules like that in South Africa yet, and you can't really make those rules until you haven't allowed a fair proportion of the population to get vaccinated. But if we look at countries that are far ahead of us with vaccination, European countries and also in the United States, there are many institutions that now have those rules, and you then require a vaccination card to enter. Now, the reason why they don't use paper vaccination cards is because it's relatively easy to cheat with those cards. With a digital vaccination card, there are certain security measures that you can implement to make it hard to cheat with it. One of those measures is a QR code that is encrypted and that can be scanned. Our vaccination card will have that, but the QR code won't. It will be on the card, but it won't work yet on Friday. They still need to implement software for it to work. And then there's another level of a digital signature that will likely be implemented later. It's also known as a cryptographic signature, which provides a higher level of security. Now, you may want to ask, is that in line with what other countries do? There's really no international standard yet, or not at the moment. So each country pretty much do what they want to do. What there is World Health Organization guidelines that requires you to have certain bits of information on the card, and then it requires you to be able to empower someone who checks that information, like, for instance, the airline, to be able to verify the validity of it. And that's where things like digital signatures come in. There will be codes that will be provided to them by the Health Department to be able to check if it's valid. And that card will then guide you as to, which countries you can go to and which local institutions you can enter.
With the digital vaccine certificate, Mia, does one have to eventually print it out, or can you just keep it on your mobile device and then it gets scanned from there? For example, if you're going through the airport or wanting to enter a restaurant or a facility that needs that type of authentication.
Yes, that's a great question, Tommy. You can absolutely print it as well, and there will be a QR code on the printed version that a restaurant, for instance, then will be able to scan with a 2D scanner once the software has been finalized by the health department. So you can either carry it on your phone, but you need a smartphone for that, or you will be able to print it, but you do need access to the internet. The health department is looking into the possibility of making the site one where you don't have to pay for data so that you can access it for free. It's not at that stage yet, but it's something that they're looking into.
And over what period of time will this digital certificate be phased in? I'm asking in respect to those who have the paper right now. Perhaps will they be able to use the paper certificates up until the digital rollout is complete?
That really, if you talk about international travel, that depends on the rules of a particular country. My understanding is that many European countries at the moment do accept our printed cards, that you can travel with it. Whether they accept, whether all countries accept it really depends on their policies. The same with our current digital vaccination card that we're going to release on Friday. It depends on each country's rules, but my understanding is that it is relatively compliant and will be accepted by most countries. How long will it take until we have a fully fledged version with all the security measures? It's likely to be completed by the end of November.
So, Mia, what exactly is the process to get access to the certificate? Do you have to go online and actually input all your data there, and that data then correlates with what is in the central hub, the database, the health database?
Yes, when you go to the website where you can download a digital certificate, it will ask you for your ID, and that ID has to be the form of ID that you use to register on the EVDS. So it's either your ID book or a passport. It can also be a foreign passport or asylum seeking number or a refugee number. It's important that you use the same number that you use to register on the EVDS. Once you've registered, it will also ask you for a vaccination code. So that's the vaccination code that you got after you were vaccinated. It can be one of the codes. If you got Pfizer, it can be either the code of your first or second jab. Either of those codes will link you to the information of your information on the EVDS. Once you have entered all that information and it sends you a certificate, it will ask you for it will send you a one-time PIN to the cell phone number that you used to register on the EVDS. And after you've entered that PIN into the system, it will then download the final certificate that you will get.
I wonder, will this be available in different languages? I'm just thinking of, the old man or the old woman who is not fluent in English and will really have a tough time navigating their way around all of this.
That's a question I haven't asked the health department yet, so it's a great suggestion and I will try to find out. I don't have that answer yet.
Ms. Mia Malan, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for all that information. That's Mia Malan. She's editor-in-chief of Bhekisisa Centre for Health Journalism.